I got friends only wanna talk business. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I've been getting out of war, and I've been shutting down the stars. Cause when it rains and it pours.
And welcome to Put That Coffee Down. This is the Freight Sales Show for Closers. My name's Kevin Hill. I'm your host for the next half hour, where we talk about freight sales. We talk about freight broker sales. We talk about customer sales, carrier sales, everything in between. We also talk about entrepreneurship, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Sales and entrepreneurship are just two sides of the same coin. But we're going to talk about 5 simple steps to follow when solving problems. Problems are a fact of life, and how you solve problems, how you attack them is the difference between success and failure in many cases. We'll have Michael Fullam. He's a co-founder of Togo Logistics. Come on. It's a new venture, a new project, and it's kind of a new business model as well. It's unique, and we'll talk about the 5 simple rules of solving problems and how they apply to starting and running a business. They're very applicable for that. But first, I want to talk about the market for just a few minutes. It's peak season. We're coming out with peak season right here. And what do you know? There's not much of a peak season this year in the freight markets. And one of those reasons is certainly, this shift in the consumer, shift in spending patterns from goods to services. There's a buildup of inventory in 2021 as everyone was fighting and competing for ship space, for truck space, any kind of capacity they could get to get products on the shelves because of the soaring economy and the buying spree by consumers in 2021. So let's throw up our first graph here. This is our ocean chart that we have played out here, and there's a lot of call outs here. This goes back to 2019. Back to the full pull forwards in late 2019 to beat the tariffs in 2020. We all thought there was a lot of ocean activity during that stretch. Kind of an extended peak season going up to January 1st of 2020. It pales in comparison to what happened during the pandemic. That first clearing out of China before lockdowns. You see that spike there in early of 2020. Then the crash where you had a lot of blank sailings during the real lockdowns, especially here in the U.S., where virtually everything closed down for about a month. And then the ramp up of people still staying at home, still buying goods, a lot of e-commerce activity going on into 2021, where container rates went up to $20,000 a container. They're back down to sub $3,000. Now you just saw this panic buying. Certainly in the first stages in March of 2020, you saw panic buying by the consumer, stocking up, buying toilet paper. But in the summer of 2021, you saw that panic buying transferred to corporations who could virtually sell anything they have on their shelves, but they couldn't keep their shelves full. So you had this competition that bid up ocean freight, and that really extended through last Christmas, through around April or May of this year, where a lot of retailers just got stuck holding the bag. They have a lot of inventory now. The consumer shifted. The economy kind of opened up. Travel opened up. So you have a lot of additional spending, or a shift of spending to services right now. A lot of that's travel experiences. Everyone's getting on a plane. So Bank of America credit card data showed, I think air travel's up, or travel, I should say, is up about 15% year over year, where department stores are down 15% year over year on spending through debit cards or credit cards. So you see this crash, and it kind of leads up to the inventory numbers I'll show right here. And this is a cohort of, let's say, the top 6 retailers or department store retailers. So if you think about Macy's, Nordstrom's, Kohl's, TJ Maxx, Ross, some of the discounters, Dillard's as well, you see this inventory. You get rolling through 2019, all of a sudden, a big drawdown in the inventories in 2020. During that, stay at home, buy things for at home, buy things for for physical goods, really, because you can spend it too much on services. See that ramp up, that recovery, that panic buying in 2021, and additional growth in 2022. I think it's 28% above where it was 2021. So this peak season, you're not seeing a lot of freight activity. What you'll probably see is a lot of sales going into Christmas. They're probably just starting to ramp up because whatever doesn't get sold by December 25th or December 31st is going to be much cheaper in the first half of next year. So retailers want those off the shelf back into a normal cycle of activity. I think I was going through the numbers this morning. And typically, that cohort of retailers, 2 to 4% growth would be a good year. Kind of tracks the economy. It's declining businesses as well. So really slow growth, but you saw a 48% uptick between 2020 and 2021 in sales growth. And, that type of volatility is hard to forecast. It's hard to order for. There's a reason why freight was booming, truckload was booming, maritime was going off the charts, and you see this glut of inventory now, and there's no activity in freight markets that signify a peak season at all. In 2019, I think in December, the last freight recession, right, going into December of 2019, we hit double-digit outbound tender rejection rates, which showed kind of that peak movement. I don't know if we'll hit double digits this year. And we're sitting at just above 4% nationally on outbound tender rejections, and there's going to we might hit 10% for a week, maybe 12%, but it's going to be very muted, almost non-existent, really. If we go to the next chart really quick here, guys, and we will see top retailers in orange. So that's our cohort of the 6 department stores, plus Walmart, Target, Lowe's, Home Depot, and also Best Buy in there. So you can see they're up about 25% year over year inventory-wise out of, I think there's 10 or 11 names in that basket of retailers. And then you have Amazon all on its own. 50% increase in inventory. They really went all in on e-commerce. We saw this week, yesterday, the announcement of 10,000 layoffs in Amazon. It goes throughout the entire Amazon portfolio of businesses, but a lot of that has to do with those, they had an extra Prime Day this year. So we'll see how Amazon powers through the pandemic, but I think they doubled their warehousing space in 2020, 2021. You see those inventories grow 50%, and that is a problem. That's an opportunity cost. We'll talk about simple steps here in a second about solving problems, but you have a lot of cash tied into inventory that is declining in value. I mean, every day that inventory is sitting there is costing you for storage, but right now in this market, it is really, truly declining in value because anything sold at a future date. You talk about the sales in January and February of anything that was unsold before Christmas. You're going to probably see a lot of great deals. But that's the market. That's peak season. We're heading into that. Next week is Thanksgiving already. I can't believe 2022 is already almost done. It's just been a quick year. It's been an exciting year. And, if you're opening up a business, it always is an exciting year. And we'll get to that in just a second. But first, I want to talk about TriumphPay, because TriumphPay is the payments network for trucking. TriumphPay creates cost and time efficiencies and reduces risks so carriers can get paid quickly and safely. Our network provides brokers, shippers, and factors transparency across the entire payment process. Log on to triumphpay.com to learn more. Once again, that's triumphpay.com. And you can learn more about the services over there at TriumphPay. But now let's bring on our guest for the show today. It's Michael Fullam. He's co-founder of Togo Logistics out in the Philadelphia area. Michael, great to see you. Great talking to you again. How are you doing today?
Good to see you, Kevin. Thanks for having me. If you haven't noticed, I am from Philadelphia. I'm a Philadelphia fan with the background.
Yeah, sorry about the World Series. Are you a Phillies fan?
Thanks, Kev. Absolutely. All 4 sports. We'll get there. We were surprised this year with how far we got. We're going to get some more pieces. We're going to win it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit of feedback on your mic. If I don't know if you can fix that real quick, but I think we are. But let's talk about your new venture, Togo Logistics. You branched out. You have Sand Table Logistics. This is a little bit of different business model. It's you're a freight broker at heart. C.H. Robinson guy came out. Can you give us a little bit about your background and kind of Togo Logistics and kind of that business model?
Yeah, so I was with C.H. Robinson for some time, I think 13 years. And then I joined Reed TMS. I was with them for about 3 years. And at the end of 2021, decided to start a business. And we got off to a great start. And throughout the year, through, funny enough, a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today, started finding new ways to create value and finding new ways to develop our business. And that's where the genesis of Togo came from. So January 1, we're going to be releasing a new website, a new brand, a new value proposition, and we're very excited about it. It's essentially centered around providing 4PL services, business process outsourcing to small carriers, small intermediate-sized shippers, and other logistics companies.
Cool. So, and part of this, starting a new business, you have a lot of challenges. You have a lot of, challenges, issues, problems, things have to be solved. Your business model has to solve a problem for your customers and for your prospects. But just getting up off the ground, you have it's a lot to bite off. There's a lot of little straggly problems running around all the time, whack-a-mole, fires all over the place. So I found an article. It's an interesting article. It's based on a book. It's from A.J. Jacobs. It's The Puzzler, one man's quest to solve the most baffling puzzles ever, from crosswords to jigsaws to the meaning of life. And, life is a puzzle, business is a puzzle, and it's your unique puzzle, right? You start one business and you have this whole set of jigsaw puzzles and pieces that you put together. You start another business or someone else does. It's a whole different puzzle set.
Yeah, this article kind of hit home on every single point. I think one of the things that really screamed out at me is when you're starting a business, like you said, there's a lot to take on. There's a lot of anxiety and stress. And sometimes that stress can lead to not the clearest of thoughts. And if you find ways to kind of quiet that stress, what happens is you stop forcing stuff. And I think if you have to force things, you're not really creating value, because value should speak for itself. And once you let go of some of those things that cloud your mind when you're trying to solve problems, you start to realize that there's very easy ways to create value and it's right in front of you. But your frustration or your distractions have gotten in the way. So I think calming yourself down, kind of leaning into the easy ways, the simple ways to create value, and following that was really how we came across the value position that's coming out next year.
That's great. But let's start with rule number one right here real quick. And this is all, this is mistakes that we all make, things we do. Number one rule is don't get furious, get curious. And I think a lot of times you kind of have to work through this process and learn this sometimes, is that there's problems everywhere. Life is a series of problems, and it's how you solve those problems that determine happiness, really. So don't get furious, get curious. So I always found it best to accept the problems, right? I accept them. I anticipate them, and I don't get mad about them anymore. I get curious about it. I get curious. Okay, I got to solve this. Then I got to go over here and solve this. Then I got to go over this, solve this. And it's really how creative you get in solving those problems is how much enjoyment I feel in life. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah, in fact, it's a lesson that I've learned from people like you that have experience being an entrepreneur. I think working for larger corporations for a long time, you have a specific goal, you have a specific plan, and you got to do whatever it takes to achieve it. But in the entrepreneurial space, if you took that approach, you'd get real angry real fast. And I think a better approach is that you're in position to conquer things, to get through problems, to, not necessarily just execute a plan. It's to figure things out and get past things. And if you have that mindset, you get a little bit less frustrated when problems occur. Instead, you look at them like an opportunity and you leverage your skill set to get something from it, to make something of it.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned large corporations. And I think that's one of the issues a lot of people have working with a large corporation, because it's so process oriented, which is good. That's how a business should be. But it takes a little bit. I always felt that you're not really in control of your own destiny in a lot of ways, right? You're kind of in a cog in the machine, if you will. So you don't get to solve problems the way you'd like to, or the way that you think might work. It's predetermined. It's pushed down, and it can be a little bit suffocating for a lot of individuals, and that's why you see a lot of people quitting their 40-hour a week jobs to go work for themselves for 120 hours and have much more fun doing that.
Yeah, definitely. The stress is different, right? And I'm sure you could attest to that. But the stress at a corporation, like you said, when a problem occurs, you're feeling a lot of pressure around you. There's a specific vision. There's a specific thing that needs to be accomplished. Some people thrive in that environment because I think things are a little bit more simple in terms of what you have to accomplish. But if you're an entrepreneur, there might be more than one way to look at it. And the 120 hours that you have to spend looking at it, they don't feel like that it's all work. Some of those hours are fun. So it's not, I don't want to use the word painful, because it's not always painful working for a corporation, but there's definitely aspects of it that aren't as painful.
Yeah. Yeah, there's really great aspects to it. I think one of the things that I always found is that you don't necessarily control your own destiny, right? You do with your own business or in nimble organizations, you control your own destiny, but there is that it's a different kind of stress, and it's a stress I like much better than not being able to control my own destiny. But there's, as you said, there's people who thrive in that situation as well, and maybe I would too at some point. But I do like kind of being a nimble on my own. That's always fun. The second tip here is chop your problem into bits, right? And I think this is something that we all learned a little bit in math class, is that you can't solve the full equation at once. You got to chop it down and solve what you can. Figure out, and there's another tip down here: find your toehold. Right? It's really breaking it down to the simplest unit and start solving that and building it out from there. It's a process. Everything's a process. Learning's a process. You're not going to get to an expert level in anything overnight. You got to start from ground zero, and you have to enjoy learning and growing that, or it's just you're not going to last. You're going to quit.
Yeah, this one's huge. I think this one's applicable to being an entrepreneur. It's applicable to being a salesperson. It's applicable to working for a large corporation. I think that when you chop things into bits, not only is it something where you can kind of clear your mind and actually address something instead of being overwhelmed by the whole thing, but when you start compartmentalizing and addressing certain things, you find a rhythm. You get some positive feedback. The next problem gets a little bit easier. And you also, I think, find ways, especially in what we do as entrepreneurs or salespeople, is you have to create value. And you're usually creating value for someone else. So if you compartmentalize the problem, whether it be a customer's problem that you're trying to solve for, or your own business problems that you're trying to solve for, when you chop it into bits, you might find that there's a whole solution or a whole business line or a whole cell within that specific bit that you've broken out. One of the things that we came across in this process, and again, I come from the larger corporations where when they sold a 4PL solution, it was this huge menu for this huge company. And we were intimidated by the thought of that at first. But in engaging with our customers and creating some custom solutions, we started realizing that what they wanted was just a specific piece to be solved for. And once that was solved for in their own way, in a custom way, they wanted to chop the next one. And over time, the whole problem is solved for. And getting there, you were a lot more effective, a lot less stress, and you figured out a way, like I said before, to create value. So I think chopping problems into bits, whether you're an entrepreneur or salesperson or just a person in life, is a huge, it's a healthy thing to do and an effective thing to do.
Yeah, Michael, it reminds me of freight tech, right? And a lot of programs out there, if you talk about TMS, right? TMS can do 1,000 different things. But don't try to sell 1,000 different things at once. Those 1,000 different features, right? There's probably one or two that you should focus on, tackle those, get buy-in from that, and then you expand out from there, right? You can't go in with that broad vision. It's got to be a very niche, specialized vision, and then you build out from there. And that's where the process should land.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's go to number 3. This half hour is going by quicker than I expected. Turn the puzzle upside down or backwards or any other way. How I do this is I start with the most absurd or the craziest things, right? Maybe the most simple things, and then think about the entailments that come across that, because usually you can solve a problem, but it creates 100 other problems. But I start there. I start thinking about it in every which way I can, usually the most absurd and crazy ways first, get those out of the way. But it was a nice thought experiment. And again, everything is a process.
Yeah, this one actually comes naturally to me. I think I struggle more often with the more by the book stuff. I love thinking outside of the box. I love looking at things from a different perspective. There was one podcast I heard, and the guest was someone that owned a car renovation company. They took old classic cars and they made them into new awesome cars. And this person had a bunch of teams. Some teams did the exterior of the car. Some people did the tires. Some people did the interior. And anyway, they'd get this old, basically rust bucket of a car. They'd sit around a table and they'd have to design what they wanted to turn it into. And the leader of this company was having problems because every time they'd sit down to design, the exterior people were fighting against the interior people, and they never really got to a place. And even if they got to a place of a design that they liked, actually executing it, the teams were still fighting. And one of the rules he put into place is that this team that got together to brainstorm how to renovate this car had to build a design 3 different times as a group, each time being completely different than the one before. And at the end of building it or designing it 3 times, they were able to pick the best parts out of each one or expose a different way to do it, maybe something that was off the cuff. And the designs got a lot better. Not only did the design get better, but actually executing the design got a lot better. So I think thinking from a different way, flipping things over, being willing to make mistakes or say some things that might sound, stupid, is a good way to brainstorm and get through problems. Because a lot of times you're just tunnel vision or you're locked in, and just exploring opens the mind a little bit.
It does, and that's a really good process that they put in place. When you're starting a business, you have to think different, because you have to do the same thing everyone else is doing, but in a different way, in a more productive way, a more value-oriented way. So if you're just copying other people word for word or process for process, you're not really bringing anything different to the table, and it's hard to succeed that way. You have to think different. You have to think about the problem differently and propose a solution that no one else has out there. And that is a key to success, whether that's your own company or sales. Does not matter either way. Let me go through these next 2 really quickly because we're running out of time here. Be supremely flexible, right? And my thought of this is everything's provisional, right? There's always a better way out there that you haven't discovered, and maybe that's because you haven't thought about it, or there's new technology or something happens in the market that all of a sudden becomes a better fit. And then find the toehold. I mentioned that earlier. Very important to do. I think it's the foundation for the other 4 is to find something that gets you excited, gets you curious, gets you thinking. And whatever that aspect of the problem might be, there's always something out there that gets you engaged and lets you go on. Michael, thanks for joining us today. I wish we had a little bit more time to go through this. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
You bet. And so you can check out that on Fast Company. Those 5 things about solving problems. It's the keys to success in sales and business. And with that, this is Put That Coffee Down. We'll see you next Tuesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time.
I got friends only wanna talk business. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I've been getting all the work, and I've been shutting down the stars. Yeah,